All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Vivy Fluorite Ice Song, episode 8.
All right.
We met Ophelia.
Ophelia. Yeah.
Nice and wholesome, sweet AI that kills herself.
Uh-huh. And we also re-met Matsumoto
Yeah.
after 20 years.
Because Vivy, for some reason, needed a factory reset.
Right.
I don't know why.
Hard reboot.
Something maybe happened, you know, that just made her go a bit haywire.
Just a bit.
She doesn't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, so now it's a question of, as she starts to remember more and goes back into this stuff there, will those things get dredged up again?
Especially given that that was because of a suicide, and now she's dealing with a suicide. And, you know, I'm sure nothing will happen.
Nothing bad will happen. Nope. No, not at all.
But then there's also that Toke feller. Toke-looking feller.
He
maybe he's the descendant
like
or something.
Yeah. It's very curious as to why he's there, but he probably is someone that's aware of who Vivy was.
Right. Yeah.
And now we're dealing with Diva, who will probably shift back into being Vivy soon. But for now, yeah. Let's see if we can help Ophelia. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Whoa.
Okay. All right.
I did not expect this twist.
Yeah, for a few reasons.
So there's a few things going on here. One, Matsumoto got out-hacked.
Yep, which
Two,
is crazy.
Kakitani is here, and it's not clear if it's his son or...
Or he's actually just... Because he looks the way he did in the very beginning of the show, which was 40 years ago. So
I think it has to be his son.
I feel like it's got to be his son. But then the question is what's the situation there? Because 20 years is a big time skip, but the last time we saw him, even though he had been relentlessly hunting AI... Even after all the times Vivy saved him, well, he looked way older, but in that arc, he ended up actually helping Vivy, right? Which seemed like it could have been a turning point. Now, granted, that's one event where they're being hunted by all kinds of AI, and, you know, so it's maybe lesser of two evils in his mind.
Yeah, so that's its own thing
That's its own thing.
And then we have Antonio, who was her acoustics AI partner that she mentioned in the previous episode, which is a nice little
It was a very
there.
clever way that they mentioned it without it going too deep down that plot
but she was
line.
very protective of that info, and also the idea that was
the memories were precious.
Yeah, the past is very important to her.
Right.
There's a lot of things that happened back then that she remembers all of, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like there might have been something that was introduced in these two episodes here that has already started her shifting away from being Ophelia to being Antonio.
Well,
which then leads me to guess whether or not Ophelia wanted this.
Right. So if I were to
is this a murder then?
Well, so what we know is that Antonio died of mysterious causes. He broke down 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. We know that Antonio is currently possessing Ophelia. So
under whatever way that works.
However that ended up happening. But it probably ended up happening 5 years ago. Right? Unless it was something where she specifically tried to get him back, you know? It probably happened 5 years ago. Why it would happen 5 years ago, I'm guessing, is that it's something where... Because the big thing that he said was something that she needed to work on wasn't her voice, but it was her confidence.
Yep.
So, given that he is absolutely confident in her ability to sing... I wouldn't be too surprised if they ended up doing something where it's when it comes to the final performances on the stage and stuff, you can take it over. That way I'm not nervous or anything like that.
Sure.
And then there you go. Because her performance when she was doing the rehearsal, we focused on all of the people listening and how they were entranced by it. And while the audience did give a standing ovation, Vivy was saying, you're not putting your heart into it.
Right. I think the difference is that people were able to feel her heart put into the music during the rehearsal, which is probably when it was her doing it.
Right.
But then later, during the actual performance, maybe Antonio was doing it there, like you're saying. So therefore, the heart's not in it, even though people still resonated with it because the singing was technically sound.
Right.
But that might have been just a combination of all the essences of the performance.
Yeah, exactly.
The lighting and all this stuff.
Yep.
Which is actually kind of interesting in that there was actually a lot of focus given in this episode to the lighting as being like this really important part to the actual performance.
It's the big stage, immersive experience.
Yeah, obviously there's a spectacle and stuff, but there were aspects of things where even like Vivy was being brought, or Diva was being brought into this by an assistant person coming in and being like, how do you feel about the timing on this lighting? And I'm almost wondering if like that's the thing that's happening here, is that you've effectively got two AI in one that are working together. So that's how Matsumoto is getting out hacked. He's basically outnumbered in that regard.
Sure. Yeah, like
and maybe this AI also has been, spending a lot of time getting, things, situated to where it can work this way. The part that's the part that's a little bit weird about this though is that if the data was based around the idea that Ophelia is going to commit suicide here, but I don't think the data was based on any knowledge about what was going on with Antonio here.
Right.
Is there actually a way in which this has completely changed, and that's why we had that moment in the beginning of the episode where we showed something else jumping, or well, they had both landed after their jump, but it looked like that was Antonio on the ground with her kind of fuzzed out.
Oh, in the image of the future?
In the image of the alternate future.
Right, yeah.
Because there was one where it showed her, and that was the one of the projected future from forever ago.
And then there was one where it showed her and Antonio.
And something.
And something
we couldn't tell what it was, but it very much looks like
it
Antonio.
seemed, Antonio has a very particular silhouette. Now, there are a few other things that because this is setting up like it's going to be a 3-episode arc, right, rather than a 2-episode arc.
I mean, it's not a 2-episode.
Well, right, because it's
It's whether it's a 3 or 4. Really.
Right, exactly. I'm guessing it's going to be 3. If they did 4, that would be pretty crazy. But there are a lot of plot threads that they set up in the first 2 episodes. One of the other ones was the AI that attacked Vivy in the shed or whatever. Right. That seemed very like kind of throwaway, like just like not connected to the rest of the situation, but. That's kind of a big deal. If you have an AI that randomly attacks somebody, there's got to be a reason for that. One potential reason, now that we have Antonio showing up, because, if an AI attacks somebody, either its own programming went haywire or it got hacked. And since Antonio is apparently really good at hacking, if he was able to take over Ophelia and whoever
we're not 100%
fudged with
sure
the cameras.
That Antonio is the one doing everything.
That's true. There could be someone else helping to orchestrate this, because then we'd have to get the justification of how an acoustics AI is an expert hacker, But
because remember, she saw M.
I think it was it was another model like M. It wasn't necessarily M itself.
Right. But the idea that this was something after she had seen Kakitani.
Right.
Which means that on some level, he's involved potentially with the hacking side of things.
Sure. Okay, yeah. And that could actually, maybe that would be a way that it ended up happening, is that even if he's not Kakitani, but he's like the son of Kakitani or something like that, maybe Kakitani got a bunch of stuff from Metal Float since he was there. And then he's like, cool, we can weaponize some of this stuff in our war against AI. And he's using that, and that's how he's able to hack stuff. But the other thing that I feel like, because this is, in a lot of ways, the most important question here, is why is Antonio doing this, right? He's at the very least connected to this. Why is Ophelia killing herself? Why is Antonio making her kill herself? Or however it's going to end up working. Because, if I when Antonio was introduced, I got the vibe that maybe it would be more of like a Shakespearean thing of out of the grief, right? Sure. She ends up killing herself to be with him because she was really also singing for him, and it's just not the same without him. But if it's no, she's gone, this is Antonio. How does that get explained on a technical level, but then on a motivational level? If he wants to keep her singing, did he end up losing faith in her actual ability to sing, and that's why he's killing her? What's the...
Yeah. There's a couple things that are just kind of up in the air right now with that. Is that Ophelia has been the super fan of Diva all this time.
Yes.
And has watched like every single one of her performances and stuff, and yet asks her like, you know, how do you sing? And yet she was also the one that gave that rehearsal performance. So maybe what Ophelia is really trying to get at is what is the mission, and how have you been doing with handling the mission? Because they also gave at the end of this episode the bit with Kakitani being saved by
his AI piano instructor.
His AI piano tutor, who basically was like, well, I have to give happiness to everyone. And thus I must save everyone to live.
Right.
But that is also a task that cannot be fulfilled because everyone needs to live, and by the nature of how humans work, people die.
I'm guessing there's like a level of, okay, this is an immediate thing that I can actually affect rather than like saving every person on the planet.
That's not what the tutor was saying, though. The tutor kept going back to save people, even though there was no chance necessarily that they would actually be able to live. So then how can you fulfill the mission if you're dead?
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Like the AI was essentially, I would say, malfunctioning there, in that it was like, it wasn't judging basically whether or not it could save them. It was just like, I have to, because I have to give happiness to everyone by song. Thus, everyone needs to live. And it's like, dude, that actually is impossible. That's not going to work. You would either need to be shut down rather quickly once you start to see more and more people that are around
that are
you.
in suffering and potentially in danger or whatever.
Exactly. So I am feeling like this is a situation where either one or both of them, Antonio or Ophelia, came to the conclusion that their mission was actually impossible. And there's something going on there that's very similar to what Vivy went through in episode 6.
Sure. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, so one of the other things that the further in this show it goes, and the further in the timeline it goes, the more I'm looking for like things with how the AI function that could potentially lead to an AI revolution. And so far, the AI as they develop seem to be becoming more and more helpful to people, right? Like there was the whole situation with like more integrated, right? But it's not like it's the we haven't had something so far of like them being like, we want to be the masters and we will be the robot overlord,
not.
You know, right? Yeah, exactly.
We still got 60 years projected.
Right, if we ever get that, it's probably too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we have situations like you're saying where AI end up getting given impossible tasks that cause them to, in attempting to follow those tasks, be destroyed either by their own means or just, you know, as an indirect result.
Well, that's what's already happened.
No, right. But since that's the case, maybe that's where AI could end up desiring to cast off the shackles of humanity, basically, because they realize that it's actually something that is, you know, overwhelmingly to their detriment, you know? And then maybe the desire to die here is better to die than live in bondage, you know, kind of a thing. Like,
or to, in that respect, that's where also humans can find happiness, is in death, is that, well, no more struggle, sorrow, or sadness or anything like that can happen to you when you're dead. And this could be the first instance of that.
Hence why immortality is the biggest curse, you know, like, yeah, that would just be terrible, right?
Right, exactly. So, okay, well, let's see if we can get to the root of the matter. And I liked that Diva, in this case, was very focused on, like, no, Matsumoto. We have to figure out the heart of the matter, like the root of the matter. She kept saying root, which I found to be funny because the heart of the matter is also kind of another way that she could have said it. But the idea that she's like, previous me was obsessed with finding out, like, how to put your heart into something. That's simple.
Yeah.
That's easy.
That's basic.
Basic.
Yeah. Right. Like,
I love that that's something that she sees as basic, because the reason why, and this is very important, I think that this is something that I think they're hinting at here, is that there is nothing physically different about Vivy from before then with the one now. So how does Vivy know the answer? Well, it's obvious. There's something that's very much changed about Vivy in that time. That's not her environment. The AI and beings around her that are also like her have advanced. They have evolved.
Sure, okay.
In some ways, she's experiencing a form of time travel in which she basically got thrust into the future where all these AI have started to figure out how to put your heart into something.
Uh-huh.
And she gets the benefit of having to just start with that being the thing that they've got. Like Vivy has that.
Right, she develops with them, and then it's no big deal.
Just by osmosis.
Right, and that's a fun way to show Matsumoto's continued limitations as AI progressed, but then also, he was designed differently,
Right, but isn't that interesting? The idea that then over the course of these 20 years, she then adapted to that.
Right.
But Ophelia, and this is something that I'm still really curious about whether they'll bring up, because there's nothing that is specific about the age of these AI. How long has Ophelia been... Well, no. It actually doesn't matter.
5 years since Antonio.
Well, yeah. I think my line of thinking doesn't actually matter.
Okay.
Because she said she looked at every single performance that Vivy went
every
through.
Second of live footage.
Every second of it. That means that she saw the stuff when Vivy was struggling to put her heart into it.
Yep.
Meaning that she hadn't done that yet. So there was a point, which would be really confusing.
It was probably gradual over the course of decades.
The 20 years, specifically the 20 years. That before then, there was no sign of her putting her heart into something. Then she started that. Then she skyrockets as this
phenomena in the AI singing world.
Yeah, exactly. So Ophelia is asking her, like, hey, what motivates you to sing? Like, or not motivates you. That's what she asked Ophelia. But like, what was the actual question? She's like asking, like, how do you sing? Like, what is the what is it?
Was it in the previous episode or
it was right here in the previous episode? I'm looking at the scene. How did you learn to sing the way that you do? Right. How? And that's really important, because I think Diva doesn't even really fully get it. Is that it's like, what do you mean how? I just sing this way. Because there's a gap in her memory where before this, she doesn't see it as a progression where she just suddenly started moving in that way. But Ophelia is noticing the two different types of Vivy here.
Okay.
Or two different types of Diva.
Sure, yeah. I like it.
And that's causing what is the issue here? There's something.
Right. Yeah, because that's the, like, if I were to try and get into like motivation also for the whole Ophelia committing suicide thing, the other thing that's been brought up is that she's constantly comparing herself to Vivy, right? And also being compared to her best possible self, right?
Sure.
And I could definitely see that being something that would cause self-destructive thoughts in a regular person, right? If they aren't able to, feel like, they can't regulate it, or they can't live up to, the expectations of themselves, the people around them that they really care about, or, all sorts of things. But, I'm not sure how that would cross over with Antonio.
Well, Antonio, I feel like, is the anomaly, but there's also the possibility that Antonio or her is working directly with Kakitani as well.
Sure. Yeah. Because Kakitani was definitely covering for her absence. And that's actually the biggest reason where we know that the hacker is Kakitani, because if it was Antonio, unless Antonio is not aware 24/7, since he's inhabiting Ophelia's body, he would have known about the flower and he would have adjusted accordingly.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And in fact, the fact that wasn't communicated to Kakitani makes it seem like there might not be actually that much communication that happens between the two parties.
That's
because they could have been like,
true.
oh, by the way,
very possible.
like yes, we've seen that even with Matsumoto, it's possible for them to make mistakes and miss things, which is a great way to show that they actually are very much becoming like people.
Yeah.
Because that's actually, error is where, that is the beauty of humanity in many ways.
To be fair, he's independent enough, and his programming is such that he's not an observer bot. Like, he's not programmed to notice details that are out of place.
Sure.
And also, he makes multiple mentions in this episode especially that he's not trying to understand Ophelia.
Right. He's just trying to stop this exact
thing from
happening, which is a great way to show that, like, oh, an AI getting lazy, like that's interesting, you know.
Yeah, you could be doing more, and he's like, yeah, but I
don't need to, you know.
I don't know, like, that will affect things.
Blue Milk Run, sure, there's a good motivation for it, but like that's just something that we've never dealt with 3-episode arcs in this show before, so I still have so many questions, and it's probably something where we just need to wait for the next one for them to be answered. But like,
yeah. But okay, all right, here we are. Yep. Here we are. Good luck with this one. I mean,
Vivy's captured. She's in an AI straitjacket.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
But okay,
Matsumoto, you're kind of. Yeah, you're kind of in a sitch right now.
I love the idea, though, that Matsumoto might actually need to be the one to save this situation, because we haven't ever gotten really a Matsumoto-focused episode. And, like,
I don't think he'll need to be the one to save this here. I think it could be a situation where he realizes that she's not actually going to kill herself. This is a future that won't necessarily happen unless, like, specific other things are cleared, maybe.
Yeah, who knows, right? Like, there's... But I love the idea of Matsumoto needing to actually get in Vivy's kind of headspace, because she has been the one that has stopped a lot of these events because of her personal touch, you know?
Sure,
because she addresses the emotional side of things, and I would just love to see Matsumoto struggle to try and figure that out.
How do I bring happiness to people? Well, I can't sing, so there's other ways, right?
I can flop around on the floor, you know. This is cute, right?
I have recordings of Vivy, you know. I could
maybe. Yeah. But
yeah. Y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.